Now, the final piece of filtering I want to concentrate on is one which concentrates on just a few items. For example, I might want just 2 items from region name. Now, it could be that I can select those particular items. For instance, suppose I wanted a visual filter on Greater Manchester and the West Midlands. Now let's just remind ourselves of the various sales volumes as we have previously seen. So you'll see that suppose I wanted the 2 most significant items, 2 most significant areas in terms of sales volume. Well, in 2006, that would be Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire. So I might go in here and go, okay, I want to see just Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire. And that would be sufficient. Except it's not always Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire. Here, in 2009, the top 2 items are Greater Manchester and the West Midlands. So then I would have to go back into here and into visual level filters and say Greater Manchester and West Midlands instead. So what I'm going to do is say I want the top 2 items. I can also say I want the bottom 2 items. Confusingly, you also click on top N to get the bottom 2 items as well. But I need to say, well, how do you say what the top and bottom 2 items are? If you want them in alphabetical order, you can say I want the top 2 items by region name. And that gives me the top 2 items in reverse alphabetical order. I have to say the bottom 2 items to get the very first ones. So the reason for this is because if you're doing comparators, then the letter W is greater than the letter G. The further along in the alphabet, the higher it is. But generally, you wouldn't filter based on that. You would filter based on, say, the sales volume or the average sales price. So I'm going to say I want the top 2 items based on the sales volume. So I'm going to get sales volume and drag that in instead. And you can see that overall, the biggest sales volume is Greater Manchester and West Midlands. So I'm going to click on 2006 in this visualization, and you can see that the greater sales volume in the top 2 is Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire. So let's have a look, see whether that is right. 2006, Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire on the top. Let's see what happens if I was to click on 2009. Now the top 2 is not West Yorkshire, but West Midlands. So you can see that saying, I want the top N, allows us not to say I just want these 2, which are the top overall, or the top ones that I decide at the top, but they allow context to be driven. So I can say I want it to be the bottom 2 items based on whatever year or overall that I'm clicking on. So we've got South Yorkshire and Tyne and Wear, but then it becomes Merseyside and Tyne and Wear. So it is quite useful to be able to say I don't want very determinative items. I want it to be based on the context of other things. Now we can only use that in a visual level filter. I can't drag sales volume into the page level filter and say top N, or the regional level filter and say top N. And really, the reason for that is that it's all based on context, But if I was to say I want the entire page to be the top 2 by sales volume, then this particular visualization would be affected, and then clicking on that wouldn't really affect this one as much, because in terms of the top 2, because this will only contain the top 2 overall. So it can get a bit circular argument. A page level filter would affect this visualization, but we want this visualization to affect this visualization, and it wouldn't, because it wouldn't have all of the data. So top N filters, very useful, only can be used at an individual visual level, and it just restricts the amount of information so that it's just highlighting what's important in terms of the highest number, the lowest number, and then leaves the rest for other visualizations if needed.